1 year of the Mahama government from an infrastructure perspective?
Okay, thank you, Bernard. Good morning to your viewers. I'll keep it short.
Yes.
But I think we need to define what infrastructure is.
Yes.
Because when I listen to your programs, especially the radio, it tends to be restricted to roads.
A lot of times.
Yeah. So I want to discuss the spectrum before,
okay.
I mean the scope before I give my assessment, as it were.
Good.
So when we talk about infrastructure, to put it in layman's language, it is simply everything which is part of the physical things we need in order for society to function.
Okay.
And just to illustrate, you definitely came from home today. I hope you didn't sleep in the office. But the home or the house in which you live itself is infrastructure.
Yeah.
You came by road,
yes.
hopefully,
yes.
And that is infrastructure. You got here, you want to do some program to your audience, you are sitting in an infrastructure. But to do that, you need power, which is transmitted by some generation station, which is infrastructure, transmission, which is infrastructure, and the distribution, which is infrastructure. The soft part is the light you see. Then to communicate, you need some internet on your phone, which also is infrastructure. Even the Wi-Fi you receive is being transmitted as a result of some repeater station and on and on and on. If we decide to drink the water that you have served us, it came from some receptacle, which is infrastructure. So it's quite pervasive, and we tend to limit it. True. Now, the important way for me, the way I assess it is first to look at what was required, and two, what did he say he would do? And three, what did the people say they want?
Let's take one by one. What was required?
Yes.
What did he say he would do?
Yes. And what did the people ask him to do? That's the only way. Otherwise, there must be a benchmark based upon which I'm assessing. Now, what was required? What was required has nothing to do with what he said he would do or what the people say he would do. What was required in a situation where we had come from a DDEP situation, an IMF situation with all the chaos that was around, which is what Prof has already elaborated. For me, any good manager will tell you that in such a situation, the first thing you need to do is to stop the deterioration. Now, what was deteriorating that he needed to stop? Let's give a couple of examples. One is the road sector. So if the road is deteriorating, what has been put in place to ensure that the deterioration is stopped? And I think there are a lot of examples which has come on your station. I believe during the discussion going on, we can cite a lot of those examples. Quite a lot of road projects planned, but this is stage one. Stopping deterioration doesn't mean resting on your oars. Now let's go to another sector where deterioration ought to be stopped. The most pervasive, which I didn't hear Prof talk about, which is the debt, the energy sector debt.
I asked him to jump the public debt because of time. He had prepared for
huge one. It's been perennial. It's been with us since about 2007, thereabouts. At times it appears to go, then it comes back and it increases, fluctuating similar to the graphs Prof showed. I did hear, I've been monitoring that sector, I must say. I have clients in that sector. But I did hear, I think yesterday or a couple of days ago, that as of December 31st, 1.4 billion of that debt has been paid. And I'm aware that there's been an arrangement to pay this debt down over a period. And if I follow what is being done, it appears they are even ahead of schedule in the payment. That's a significant attempt to stop deterioration. And that's quite very important. Another example to give is in terms of promise to supply students accommodation. I'm sure you've heard about 10,000 hostel for University of Ghana as an example, just to give one. Again, where you have a university which says it has got 40,000 shortage in student accommodation, attempting to supply a quarter of it in year one, even though it has not been achieved, is an attempt to stop deterioration. And it's by these that I measure. Let's take power sector apart from the payment. Doomso, I don't know whether it has returned, it was Doom CSA. You remember just before the election, there was all that issue as to whether there should be a timetable or there shouldn't be a timetable. It's by this I measure people. To the best of my knowledge, from where I stay and where I work, there has been a large amount of stability. And again, how was the power debt paid? It appears it's a simple transparency to see what goes into ECG, what the cash flow mechanism is like, and how we're able to collect and, as it were, apply a method that we have always talked about but have never implemented. Again, that's a good example of an attempt to stop deterioration. So I take it that if I score from roads, from accommodation for students as an example, That's, I mean, a fairly good, a highly good score performance in that angle. But I've talked about what he had to do. Now let's deal with what he said he would do.
Okay.
And what he said he would do quickly is, for me, summarized in two main issues. One is the 24-hour economy. And the reason I'm bringing in is that it has got an infrastructure component, which relates to the voter corridor, etc. The other one emanates from his 120-day promise. But that 120-day promise, the main part that relates to infrastructure for me has to do with the National Economic Dialogue, which was done.
Okay.
And that National Economic Dialogue had a stream on infrastructure. I think you were there, I was there. I had the privilege to deliver the National Infrastructure discussion, or lead that discussion. There were a lot of recommendations which were made, and what I have done is to try and track that. I've seen those which have entered the budget and those which have not. It seems to me the ones which entered the budget were more of trying to, again, address deterioration. The major ones which should be in the long term, and for any manager, once you stop deterioration, you should now move to structural changes and then to take advantage. So I assume you haven't read those stages yet. So the types which came into that plan, for example, introducing duct and crossings in road construction so that there will be a centralized way of channeling the kind of things like fiber, like pipelines, so that we don't need to be crossing the roads. That has been introduced by the Ministry of Roads. So I think that is quite commendable as an example of what. But there are certain things which have not been seen yet. Now let me deal with the big push part, because that part happens to coincide with what the people say he should do.
And what he said he would do.
Yes, which is in the National Economic Dialogue, and what he said he would do. The 24-hour document has been launched. What I have not yet seen is the water corridor in particular, which is a major, in my view, economic activity, which is infrastructure based, which can create a multiplier effect because you link the railway, the Mpakadan Railway, to fluvial transport, which actually will cut cost of transportation in the Sahel region by about 80% if implemented. And again, I will assume that belongs to stage 2. And the other thing that I think, and I will end with that, is we need to, without resting on our OS, take advantage of the success that has been achieved in year 1 to actually now make significant structural changes and move to what takes us to the future. I'll give you an example. If I take a look at Ghana's ranking in terms of power, cost of power to industry, and I don't want to talk about homes. We like to beat our chest about being one of the cheapest when it comes to home. But when it comes to industry, we are actually number 15 in Africa.
Wow.
Where Ethiopia, for example, who we are competing with, is number 2. What do I mean by that? No nation can industrialize if it is selling power to industry at more than 0.6 cents per kilowatt hour to industry. So whereas we are above that, the next stage of structural change is how to use Ghana's advantage and drive a power hub. Once you have actually now stabilized the payment, how do you encourage more power producers to locate here? How do you encourage those already producing to increase generation? How do you ensure that you make the basic structural changes, for example, not being responsible for the purchase of fuel, not ensuring that people are not using purchase of fuel as a way to find money into their pockets? These were rumors as to the reason why ECG had all those challenges it had. These are major things to do, and the goal should be to drive the cost of power to industry down. Once you do that, job creation will then be able to overtake the chart that Prof was talking about. This is how I will assess. So I think for year 1, stopping deterioration, the score is very high. But this is the time now you test whether your success can lead to success or it leads to complacency.
Wow. David Ofosu-Dorte on infrastructure, brilliant definition of infrastructure with the broad areas, 3 areas around what ought to be done, what he said he would do, and what we say we want, analyzing it in terms of what has been achieved and what the challenges. Let's stay with the economic sector and come to agriculture. Professor Roger Canton, thank you for being here. What are your initial assessments on 1 year of Mahama in the second term?
Okay, thank you, Bernard Avle, and also, welcome to my fellow panelists, and then also your brilliant students and others who are here, and your colleagues. to join us to assess what His Excellency John Dramani Mahama have been able to achieve in his year one. First of all, I would like to say a little bit about what agriculture is, the essence, and then dovetail into what currently, where we were, and then what we are currently experiencing. Briefly, if you ask me to define agriculture, like I was taught agricultural science in one of the best schools in Africa, Navrango Secondary School, agriculture simply means the production of crops and animals. And animals is a larger, that is, we have got larger ruminants, cattle and others, smaller ruminants and all that you have. Now, when you come to where I come from, there is agricultural science. What does that mean? Agricultural science, simply put, is the application of scientific principles to agriculture with a view to enhancing production, productivity, profitability, and efficiency. Now, if you go back into history, the first enterprise or challenge our Creator God gave us when Adam and Eve deviated from what they were supposed, their primary goal in the Garden of Eden, they were told not to eat a forbidden fruit, which they, man is quite stubborn. They refuse and they eat. And for that matter, the punishment was that man will till the land. So agriculture is divine. It's something that as a result of disobedience, we were some sort of told that, look, if you disobey, this is what you get. Just like every responsible parent, if my son does wrong, there are punitive things he knows he will go through so as to keep him in line. So from there, we were moved to now come out and till the land. So it's the first profession or work that man had after creation. Then 3, I want us to look at agriculture beyond just food. When you talk of agriculture, people are just talking of chop, what you will go and eat and breakfast, lunch, and supper or dinner. But agriculture goes beyond that. In fact, livelihoods is an agrarian issue. National security, huge, it has serious agricultural implications. During His Excellency John Ajekum Kufuor's first term, 2 governments in West Africa were overthrown within days because of price hikes of major staples of grain, specifically maize and then rice. Niger, his counterpart in Niger, was overthrown because the prices of broken rice had quadrupled and government became handicapped and there was nothing they could do. So government threw their hands into the air. And as you know, usually when there is confusion, those who have the power to control confusion are the military. So when you cause confusion, you are supporting the military to come in. So the military had to come in and then get him out. The following week, the Malian president, because of the same thing, because office du Niger, where their buffer stocks and their huge production or virtually also collapsed. So prices, in fact, the average Malian was priced out. They could not. So what do? And there is a saying that a hungry man is an angry person. So they will what? Also do whatever it takes. Then if you go even into the biblical story, yes, 2 Kings, where people that were deformed were kept outside the Israeli or the Jewish.
You have established the basis of
Yes.
agric and also the importance in livelihood. So I want you to move into the assessment.
Yes. So for the assessment, I will say agriculture, just like my brother said earlier, the economy, actually have what we call the drift effect. And by the drift effect, it means, carry over from the previous government, whatever have been done, certainly have implications for where John Mahama started. You recall in 2023, we encountered a dry spell, which was variable, even in the north, within districts and regions. The effects weren't uniform. You move from one location where the rains are not so bad to another few kilometers when the rains are quite good. So government was a little bit worried, and for that matter, they foresaw or anticipated there could be food shortages. So government have to make arrangements to bring in food so that they can make up for any losses that may come up. Now, the prices of food in Ghana currently are far lower, in fact, maize, far lower than the world global maize price. In fact, to be specific, in my own area, where I come from, I'm Sisala, if you go to the Sisala area, where we are told we are the best producers of quality global maize, and that is a fact, by the immediate past minister, Honorable Dr. Brian Achampon. That is a fact, the evidence is there, you know. But a bag of maize, 100 kilograms, is selling at a paltry, in fact, it started 220 Ghana cedis. What is 220 Ghana cedis in dollar terms? It drifted up to around 250. As I talk today, you will be lucky to have maize to go for 280 Ghana cedis. It's still dangling between 240, 250 in Tumu, the Sala area, which is so bad. But then, in contrast, fertilizer, the best brand, a brand, that's Yara, was going for 550 to 590. So it tells you that you may need to sell 3 bags of maize
to get one bag of fertilizer,
which doesn't make sense. But people sit in Accra here and they are happy jumping. When I talk, they say, well, we want the food prices to be good so that we'll... What of the one who is producing that food?
So you want us to balance production
exactly
with the livelihood of the farmer,
yes,
so that there's an optimal price,
yes,
that people can afford,
yes,
but can also give the farmer the livelihood to keep producing.
Of course.
So in your assessment of the government, food prices are too low for the farmer.
Exactly.
That's your first point.
Yes. Number 2, also even the market is not even assured. Even though farmers, I'm told there was a farmer who carried about 50 bags to Tumu to sell and couldn't even get the 280, so he had to carry them back. What a conundrum. The price is even not good. You suffer and bring it to a market area to sell, and you never get it sold.
So the market is also a problem.
In fact, it's the number 1 problem now. I will
so production is high,
yes,
prices are low,
exactly,
markets are not...
Virtually, we don't talk about market itself. You recall, in the eastern region, I think, was it in April, there was this MP who visited around, I've forgotten the name, was Afsina, for one of those communities, and they had a glut of tomatoes.
Asante Akim.
Asante Akim. The MP literally went on, I think he was having a tour of the constituency, and then stumbled upon that. And the MP plus the farmers, I saw it from your own channel, City, where the MP was virtually begging the president to try and intervene so that they will buy the produce. So if Sisala farmers will have to call my MP to also come and beg John Mahama to get them to come and buy, and how often can he be doing that? So clearly it tells you that there is a very big problem when it comes to marketing, and that is the cracks.
So you've highlighted 2 main issues, the
yes,
low prices and the lack of markets.
Yes.
Now,
then,
what's your third point? Because I want you to come to a conclusion around how you're assessing the agri sector in just 1 year.
Yes. In terms of research, it's another area which dovetails into production and to value addition. In terms of production, we do not have a problem because it has been proven for over a decade consistently that, take maize for example, unless of course there is a flood or a disease like we had the fall army when around, I think during the Akufo-Addo first time, we had some fall army, a strange worm that we've not had before. It's because it's not native to West Africa. And in fact, some farmers lost totally out. And that brought a little bit of a challenge. If not, we do not have problems, particularly with maize, right? But coming down back to the president, what he said he will do and what he has done, I think so far so good. Because the president has come out with the flagship project, that is Feed Ghana project, which I have here with me. And also the 24-hour economy, I have that with me here. If you look at it generally, 4 key things that they have pledged to do or planned or promised to do are on track. In fact, either have been initiated or they have even gone deeper into achieving
so
them.
mention those 4 for us quickly.
Yes. One is, they call it Nkoko Nkete. Under that project, the president promised to give about 11 million day-old chicks to farmers, ordinary farmers. In fact, they are targeting 500 farm households across all the 275 constituencies. As we talk, Ashanti region, they have Ashanti region and Bunu region, the project have started. They have delivered these to these farm households, whilst they are waiting that this year they will continue with the remaining.
So Nkoko is on track. What's the second one?
Then the second one also have to do with the farm banks, which the government talked about. And the farm banks, what the government, they say they want to do is they will go and acquire lands. You know, one of the challenges we have in this country, particularly if you belong to the youth or women, land is an issue. In fact, land tenure is one of the most debilitating things that this country have. And that's why some of us were asking, when Rawlings was the president, that was a very good opportunity to nationalize all lands so that they become state property, just like it has been done in Zimbabwe and other areas. And South Africa, I think that is quite very important.
So the farm banks, have they been done?
Well, they have started now. I'm told they have gone to some of the communities, the regions, talking to chiefs, opinion leaders, and the like. In fact, I just saw the Minister for Industries, Agribusiness, and Trade. She went to the Oti region and acquired 60,000 hectares of land for ginger production. That is fine.
Good.
And I'm told they have been able to map out potential places. And
let's do the third
also
point.
The third one has to do with sites for sites for farmer service centers, which is also very good. In fact, a Champions Operation Feed Yourself, that was the moving spirit that did everything. Under the farmer service service centers, it's a one-stop shop. In that case, we have right from seed, which is the #1 input in agriculture, through farm machinery, simple handheld tools, equipment, tractors, combine harvesters, extension services, storage facilities, and the like. That also they have identified those potential areas that they will be working on. And then the last was this mechanization centers also.
Wonderful.
The government promised 50 of them across the country. I'm told they have also been able to target those regions or districts that will come under that. I think that is also something we can say they have done well.
Thank you very much. So basically, the government has started well so far, so good on agriculture. The Feed Ghana, you think is a great plan, and you've mentioned the 4 things, including farm banks, farmer service centers, and mechanization, all seem to have started well. This is the roundtable discussion coming to you live on 97.3 CDFM and ChannelOne television, where we're doing a thematic assessment of the Mahama presidency after 1 year. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll deal with 2 other sectors, the environmental sector and the education sector, and then the governance sector is what will open us up to their discussion. So far, we've heard from Professor William Babwating, who's given us almost 20 minutes on the economy. We had Mr. David Ofosu-Dorte doing about 10 minutes on the infrastructure segment, and Professor Canton similarly on agriculture. Join us on your WhatsApp 053-9986-996. Join us on social media. This is the roundtable discussion coming to you live here in Accra.
The Soweto Secondary Schools Wesco Alumni Association invites all alumni to its annual all-year groups Thanksgiving and Remembrance Service. There will be remembrance of the departed PACAs and also the launch of the 67th Speech and Prize Giving Day. The date, Sunday the 18th of January 2026. Time, it's 2 p.m. Venue, Cedar Mountain Assemblies of God Church, East Legon. Contact your year group president and register your attendance now. Semper Cum Optimus, always with the best.
Welcome to the Health Quarters Ghana, where medical science meets everyday life. Join Dr. Gideon Assan and the irrepressible Clemento Suarez as they tackle health issues.
My name is Dr. Gideon Assan. I have with me here my co-host, Clemento Suarez.
I knew how it felt anytime I started to feel the pain.
Whether it is hernia, breast cancer, cataracts, or infertility, the show brings together victims to share their real life stories and experts to debunk myths.
If you wear cotton supporter, and they be a pampers and a benwa or bosom. So you see, instead of it being raw egg, I done it because you already know.
Make a date with us every Sunday at 4 p.m. on ChannelOne TV. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube and all social media platforms at Health Quarters Ghana.
Welcome back. This is John Mahama 2.0, a roundtable discussion on 6 thematic areas assessing the first year of the Mahama presidency's second term. My name is Bernard Avle, and I have 6 thematic experts. So far, we've heard from Professor William Babwating, who's given us his assessment of the economy. He says it has started well. We shouldn't rest on our oars. David Ofosu-Dorte on infrastructure, similar sentiment. It's a great start. Let's now move to structural change. We've heard from Professor Roger Canton, who also says so far so good, but some work needs to be done on market access and also on pricing for livelihoods. Let's turn our attention to, we call it mining and environment, but it's really environment, just that the mining discussion has be brought to the front and center, the environment. And Dr. Ekuya Odum, who is an environmental scientist. Doc, thanks for joining us. How do you assess the first year of the Mahama government from an environmental perspective?
Thank you, Mr. Avle, and then good afternoon to my fellow panelists and then to the audience as well.
Go ahead.
I think you've given me a very difficult task. You know, when it comes to the issue of illegal mining, it's quite sensitive. Before I delve into Galamsey, I will first of all start by trying to set the scene and then highlight some key environmental issues that Ghana face. I think we are all aware that Ghana generally has what we call has issues with environmental management, right? So currently we are confronted by 5 key environmental issues. You can talk about the issue of plastic pollution, climate change, illegal mining, biodiversity loss, and then land degradation. The reason why...
Hold on. Plastic pollution, climate change, illegal mining,
biodiversity loss,
and
then land degradation.
Land degradation. So these are the 6 key problems, or 5?
The 5.
5 key problems.
So you also realize that when it comes to the issue of Galamsey, it's actually affecting 2 of these key issues, or Galamsey is sort of contributing to 2 of these key issues, which is the biodiversity loss and then the land degradation. So in terms of the regional scope of the impacts, currently I think about 14 out of our 60 regions is being heavily impacted by Galamsey activities. And then the impact of these Galamsey activities can be seen through the pollution of our water bodies. Health-wise, you talk about prevalence or increase in respiratory and some neurological diseases. I mean, we even see on our TVs instances that kids are born with all sort of, deformities as a result of pollution from these heavy metals, which is used during the Galamsey activities. So over the years, I mean, there's been a lot of effort by different governments in trying to, fight the situation. You can talk about Operation Galam Stop, Operation Halt 1 and 2. We have also Operation Vanguard. But you realize that most of these haven't been really effective due to political interference. And also the fact that there hasn't been extensive stakeholder consultation, trying to also involve the traditional councils, etc. I mean, a lot of issues with that regards. So I will then narrow down to what the government has done so far. When it comes to the Mahama administration, it's fair to say there has been some renewed intention, in trying to fight the Galamsey issue, and also some appreciable visibility with the issue. So in terms of the Mahama administration, for me, I see 3 clear approaches. They are combining the military approach. They are also combining legal reforms as well as evidence-based. And for me as a scientist, I'm very much happy when it comes to, trying to use evidence to solve a problem. Because clearly, the first step in trying to resolve an issue is to ask why. And then based on that, you try to understand what are the drivers, why are people doing what they do, etc. So in terms of the military approach, you can talk about the institutionalization and then the operationalization of what they call NIMOS, which is the National Anti-Illegal Mining Operations Secretariat. I think that was inaugurated somewhere June of 2025, and it's been housed at the Ministry of Land and Natural Resources, and they collaborate with the Ghana Police and then Armed Forces. So since the inception of the NIMOS, there's been some arrests. I think currently it sits around approximately 1,500, which also has a mix of foreign nationals. And then in terms of achievements, there's been destruction of some Galamsey infrastructure. There's been seizures. There's been, as I mentioned earlier, arrests and all that. And I will also move on to, in terms of the legal reforms, what has been done. Just recently, beginning of this year, the president repealed the LI 2462, which initially was allowing some level of mining within the forest and reserve. So since the revocation of that LI, there has been a ban on any form of mining within the forest reserve. And then statistics is also showing that there has been about a reduction of about 80% threats on the forest reserves. About 9 of the forest reserves has also been protected. And also the mandate for the Forest Commission has been fully instated now. So I move on to evidence-based. So the government commissioned a ministerial committee to try and then develop a blueprint for sustainable mining. And then based on that, the committee were able to, do extensive stakeholder, try to understand what some of the drivers, etc. And then they've been able to come up with very good recommendations on how to move things forward. We can also talk about the fact that I think recently the government made an effort in trying to regulate the permit regime for the importation of excavators into the country. So clearly, we can see there have been some efforts. So I'm just going to also give like a high-level assessment in terms of trying to look at the political will, the consistency, and also the enforcement capacity so far. So in terms of the political will and consistency, clearly we've seen that there's been some efforts, you know, through the various initiatives that I mentioned. However, I think there's room for improvement because, especially with the establishment of the NIMOs, the catch and release is not enough. We need prosecution of these perpetrators, right? And for me, I think it's more important that we shift from more like the initiative-driven approach and try and then give these institutions the autonomy. We need to institutionalize the fights, okay, so that they are able to, you know, take or bring people to book or justice. And then once we're able to institutionalize the fight, whatever measures we have in place will be able to, I mean, withstand all political cycles, different, you know, elite influences, and whatever economic trade-offs that might arise in the future. And then on the, another thing that I think will also be very good is the NIMOS is a very good initiative, but they need some level of permanent position in those heavily mined galamsey areas, right? It shouldn't be like a one-off, you know, task force event, because you realize that by the time they even get to those sites, most of them have even already moved. So I think having like a permanent positioning in those areas would try and then put them into check. And in terms of the enforcement capacity, right? Obviously, government has made some effort. I think recently he even donated some motorbikes, cars, etc. So that in itself is good. There's been some training, etc. But then they still need to increase the human resource capacity. Because you realize that usually when they go out in the field, they're always outnumbered. And most of these guys engaged in the illegal mining activities, you see them wield high military grade ammunitions and then equipment. So it's also important that when they are sending these task force out there, they also go very kind of prepared. So I think I'll just wrap up by reflecting on a personal experience. So somewhere within last year, I did some work in one of the galamsey prone areas. And then I engaged one of them. I just wanted to understand, you know, why they do what they do. And the man said, Madam, it's actually the community people who are sort of enabling us, because they've adapted their livelihood, you know, their economic activities to suit the, I mean, whatever they are engaged in. So you realize that most of the time, before even the task force get to them, they would call and then give them like a tip or warn them off. So this brings me to the fact that, you know, when you are trying to solve this issue, it's not like a quick fix. Yeah, the responsibility lies on, I mean, all of us.
Wonderful.
Okay. Clearly, for me, the way forward is that we need more of, you know, aggressive environmental campaigning, a lot of civic education, because there should be that kind of behavioral mindset change amongst all of us. And I think I'll take us back to, I think somewhere early 2000 or so. There was campaign on, you know, indiscriminate urination and all that. It really stuck to people. So I think we are at a point now that we need to be very aggressive.
Aggressive civic engagement.
Exactly.
To change the mindset of the population.
We need to.
Around environmental preservation.
Preservation.
Wonderful.
And then also it's very important that, I think I've also mentioned that point earlier on, government needs to sort of enforce or give these relevant state institutions like your EPA, your Water Resource Commission, etc. You need to, I mean, enforce, equip them, and give them the autonomy to be able to, wonderful, I mean, fight the galamsey.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Wow. We are learning a lot today. Dr. Ekwe has given us 5 areas to assess the environment, including climate change, biodiversity loss, illegal mining, plastic pollution, and the rest of it. She analyzes the environment, the galamsey fights from the military approach, the legal reforms approach, and the evidence-based approach. And she says, political will seems to be there, but institutionalize the fight, give autonomy to the agencies, and engage citizens so they can work. So there's a lot of work to be done. Everybody's saying, you've started well, you need to do more. Let's come to education. Kofi Asare, thank you so much for joining us. What are your thoughts on 1 year of Mahama as far as education is concerned? Let's put our hands together for Kofi Asare. Go ahead.
Well, it's already 1 year, right?
We're here a few months ago.
Yeah, 120 days.
Yeah.
Or 100 days.
Yeah.
120 days, right?
120 days.
Okay. Well, the NDC had a very audacious manifesto for education. Indeed, they had about 140 promises in the sector. 140
promises?
Yeah, and it would be unfair if I attempt to
mention all of them,
to review their performance in respect of the 140, because we've done year one, and they will choose which ones to start with and which ones to end with. But having done this business for over 20 years, Edward, we have a fair idea about what we expect of governments in their inception years. And so we look at the manifesto, what they want to achieve, and then also we look at it within the context of what we expect of a new government in the inception year in Ghana. So I'll start by saying that there are 5 areas that we normally review or appraise government performance in education. In an inception year, the first thing is that we want to see the government's ability to transition its manifesto into policies and mainstream those policies into existing sector plans and frameworks, so that we don't have a government that comes throwing away existing policies and then starting everything afresh. And then everything looking as if we are starting everything afresh. So that's one key thing, how you mainstream, transition your manifesto to policy and then mainstream them to education. We've seen the government successfully roll out a new education sector medium-term development plan for 2026 to 2029. The previous one was from 2021 to 2025. It ended, and so the transition has been smooth within the education strategic plan 2018 to 2030. And so that's what we want to see, continuity in policy implementation within the framework. So that is great. We've also seen a good attempt by the government to develop policies out of its manifestos. We've seen key big ticket policies like the no fee stress, free tertiary for PWDs, sanitary towels for girls in schools. We've seen many of these, big tickets in their manifestos being developed into policies and being implemented. And so in terms of transitioning from manifesto to policy within the existing framework, there's been good progress.
Good.
We also see within that context a new government that is amenable to continuing what it came to meet.
Okay.
We haven't seen some of the things we were not expecting, truncating policies because of ministers, etc.
Okay.
And so to the extent that policy continuity has been prioritized, that for me is a significant gain in the first pillar.
Good.
The last one in that pillar is in the area of inclusive governance. The process for rolling out its policies or plans has been significantly inclusive. We saw a National Education Forum being constituted, stakeholders across the country, parents, marketmen, everyone bringing their opinions on board in respect of how education policy should be shaped and pursued. So inclusive governance, has been great. The second pillar is financing. Financing is key because everything in their manifesto and every policy priority of the education strategic plan, it's about cash. The first, I think the first budget of the government gave significant hope to the stakeholder community that it was in for education as well. We saw 42 billion allocated to education, or the highest ever since. Most importantly, it was a 30% increase, in nominal terms from the 2024 allocation of 32. And in real terms too, because of the considerable stronger macro-fiscals this year. That's the highest in real terms as well. And so that was a good signal. 15% plus share of education of the national budget. Of course, within the lowest threshold of the international financial benchmarks. Not the best, but at least we missed that mark in the last 2 years before the government came. And so that's for us.
So financing, good start.
Budgeting, yes. For basic education, we saw 22% of that allocation going to basic. That was the highest for basic in 4 years. And then we saw some significant allocations in the budget to inclusive education. We saw some good moves in financing. We saw the government put to rest the issue about sustainable financing for free senior high school, amending the Get Fund Act and making Get Fund the sole financier of free senior high school, and committing similar significant amounts to inclusive education through the Get Fund Act. And that, for me, are also significant accomplishment that we must acknowledge. So financing, we've been good on budgets. The third is infrastructure. The third pillar is infrastructure. Without infrastructure, there can't be equitable access. Equitable access is a key denominator of success. We, at a basic level, we've been here in the past 8-10 years discussing infrastructure, schools under trees, desk deficits, etc. So the government gave a good signal of its intention to address the desk deficit. There was a deficit of over 1 million desks in basic schools prior to 2024. And the government allocated about 700 million through the DACF for the procurement of desks. That amount was, in our estimation, enough to solve the problem. And then another 700 or so million equivalent, about 700 or so million for the construction of new basic schools, one new KG, one new primary, one new junior high schools in every district. And so that was a good statement for infrastructure for us for basic education, because we've seen that provision being made in both 2025 and 2026 budgets. The meaning is that in 2 years, if we follow through, we would have been building the number of schools, the same number of schools that we built in about 6 years, within 2 years, at the basic level where infrastructure deficit is highest. So that, for me, has been significant in the infrastructure space. At the secondary level, we've seen very little activity in infrastructure because a lot of the year was spent looking for money to invest in senior high school infrastructure expansion to end double track. The government has just secured a $200 million urban facility for that purpose, but that wouldn't count for 2025. Tertiary, we saw very little activity within the infrastructure space. The last pillar is access and quality. The government has not done too well in the area of equitable access, especially within the spheres of transition. Now, basic secondary transition, we are not doing too well. Baseline, by 2024, about 90% of BC candidates that passed or that qualified to senior high school were able to transit to senior high school in 2024, by December 2024. As we speak, by end of 2025, only 80% of a BC candidate that qualified for senior high school had been enrolled. And that's 80%. It means that 20% were yet to enroll. 20% of those who qualified for placement were yet to enroll. There were issues with school placement. We discussed it, etc. I'm not too sure the extent of the blame that should be given to school placements and the extent of the blame that should be given to inadequate infrastructure to absorb the 580K that qualify for placement. But that's, so we're not doing too good on equitable access, especially basic secondary transition by December. At the tertiary level too, the picture didn't look too good because of the WASI result, right? And so the data we are seeing and projecting is that we are likely to drop secondary tertiary transition by about 10 percentage points compared to 2024's transition rate. We are likely to have about 150K.
Are these transition problems lack of money to pay fees or lack of space to get the people?
The tertiary one is primarily because of the 15% plus dip in core maths performance.
So the WASI results?
Yeah, so we are likely to see maximum 155,000 students enrolling instead of 200,000 that enrolled in 2024 in all tertiary institutions, public, private. And that's about 10% dip, because we are doing about 500K secondary school graduates annually. So transition, basic, secondary, tertiary, by end of year, if it gets look good. The academic year hasn't ended yet. Admissions may still be going on, but But as of end of year 31st, we were not doing too good on in those areas.
Wonderful.
I'll finally talk about assets at the basic level. Preliminary data we collected from 14 districts indicate that about 2 to 2.5% increase in gross enrollment at KG. And so that's consistent with the trend, the population growth and all that. So in conclusion, I say that in year one, the government has given hope. That it has a plan for education. It's indicated a strong commitment to investing in the sector. And so there have been some challenges with budget credibility. I didn't mention budget credibility. The ACF was in arrears of 2 quarters by end of December 2026. And so the furniture that was supposed to be procured has still not been procured because, among others, because of procurement delays occasioned by many other things, including DACF being in arrears. We are happy to know that infrastructure, the school buildings are progressing in many of the districts that we checked, but the infrastructure did not commence in 2025. And so budget credibility requires a lot of improvement to give a true meaning to allocations.
Wow. Very interesting indeed. So you gave us 5 areas, but I think it was 4. Transitioning manifesto to policy, good progress. Financing, good on budget, although budget credibility with asterisks. Infrastructure, fair for basic, very little for secondary and tertiary. Access and quality is where the real challenges are, which you've highlighted. Let's end this first round with good governance. Let's bring in Mary. Ada, what are your thoughts on 1 year of Mahama in terms of good governance? Take it up.
Thank you very much, Bernard. I believe without a doubt at all that this scoring perhaps is one that we cannot say it's not good. It's just a first year, for instance, so you cannot say government is not doing well when you've seen a lot of good economic indicators going very well, educational sector, the environment, and others speaking so nicely. And you know governance runs across each and every one of these sectors. For us, it is our explicit opinion that this government, when you look at the subject matter of good governance, benching them on the key indicators, you're talking about accountability, transparency, and all the other indicators, including inclusiveness, by the government's reset agenda and its manifesto. We cannot fault them at all for the work they've done. I think we mentioned same in the 120-day analysis that government had done its best in scoring. At the time we were ticking the boxes. Now we've had some time to also look at more of the issues that have been going on. So on accountability, you would realize the NDC manifesto spoke about things they would do to ensure that government is more accountable to the people. And one of them was ensuring that appointees of the public sector do their asset declaration on time. We saw a non-compliance even within the 120 days, which was rectified because the president had given a warning. Later in the selection of the MMDCEs, he also clearly indicated that they should go and do same. Unfortunately, perhaps you should do an assessment to see if that was done. But that's one area on accountability that I believe, without a doubt, the government tried as much as possible to work to respond to the demands of the people. Let me add that the Ghana Statistical Service did a governance wave report, 1 and 2, one in late 2024, and the second one, which we did in collaboration with them, scores up to half year. And it shows that the people believe that government is more responsive to their demands than was in the previous wave, the wave 1. So that clearly tells you that citizens believe that government is more responsive, and it was more than 30% increase in that. So it means that's significant for us. Again, if you look at the accountability, let me take what the Attorney General is doing currently on his work, you realize he is there in the public giving some information on what is happening within his sector. The OSP, or the Office of the Special Prosecutor, has also been seen doing same with but that's mandatory anyway. It's a 6-month period report to tell the people of Ghana what they are doing as an institution. But the novelty is what the Attorney General is doing. For accountability, it is good for us. But as to whether it's the best approach he's using, we all have to interrogate that further. When you take anti-corruption, governments indicated that they were going to put in place both policy, we have legislations, and also practice measures, which they clearly put in place. And in the year 1, let me start from the legal processes. One is the fact that they want to have a law that brings all anti-corruption laws together. And so the Corrupt Offences Act. They also mentioned that they wanted to have a law that mandates public officers to give information about themselves, the Conduct of Public Officers Bill, which, let me say, has been in the works for a very long time, since 2013. I think it's beginning to compete with the RTI. It's becoming the longest draft act. And it speaks to the issues around conduct of public officers. General conduct, asset declaration, to empower us to be able to say that public officers are not just declaring their assets, those assets should be verified and those assets should be published. I would come to some developments that have happened which is supporting this cause. Then we have the issue of conflict of interest, which is not criminalized, and you know that if an action or if an act is not criminalized, it's difficult to take anyone on for it. So what has happened within this regime, government is taking on a policy. I don't know if you know about the NACAP. NACAP 1 was 2014 to 2020, 2015 to 2024. And that was the government's policy at the time, shaped and spearheaded by Mahama Administration 1. That sought to give us a framework within which we all fight corruption in country, from the presidency to the least of us in the community like myself. Fortunately, we finished implementing in 2024 and an evaluation was done. This government, Mahama 2, has taken it on, and the process of the development of NACAP 2, which is called NICAP now, has been very inclusive, and as Kofi spoke to, the approach in engaging, bringing on board other stakeholders has been one of the key aspects of perhaps scoring governments well when it comes to governance, anti-corruption. There was a launch of a committee that was set up, and we have gone through the development of the national policy that is supposed to help us to fight corruption. And Bernard, I must say that this 5-year framework, if it is implemented, that's our challenge. Now it's being finalized, it will go to cabinet and then go to parliament for adoption. If we all put our energies to ensuring that we implement the NICAP, that's the National Ethics and Anti-Corruption Plan, meaning now we have added the issue of ethics. Exactly. If we all put our energies to implementing, because it goes from the legal and where all the things I've spoken to are embedded, and it brought on board experts to ensure that we are putting in place what constitutes good practice from across the globe. So we have all the laws that will help us shaping the laws into one Corrupt Practices Act, bringing on board all the others, witness protection and others to firm this up. Then we go into other policies that will support the fight against corruption. And NICAP is fantastic. It's a draft now. So let's say that if we get it implemented, it would be very good. And in the governance space too, I believe one of the very fundamental things apart from NICAP is the Constitutional Review Commission's work, which we cannot speak about governance without speaking to. The novel recommendations that have been made, and then also the President's response to the presentation was very positive. Okay. Even though we haven't seen the government white paper, but the commitment that there would be an implementation committee already is a good signal. And it means that all of us, civil society, the media, should continue to follow this process to ensure that all the recommendations that have been put in place are working and working for our good. In anti-corruption, again, we saw the manifesto talk about oral. And I believe at a point, people were thinking oral was the only thing government was going to do in the fight against corruption. There was an oral committee. After the oral committee, there was the handing over of more than 2,000 cases that were reported to them, where they assessed to have more than 20 billion cedis if they were recovered. But what we know for sure that is happening is the fact that the Attorney General's office is currently doing some very good. They've started some investigations, and in some cases, many of the cases are in court now. And that's a good signal. One of the things we need to all begin to interrogate, however, is the fact that we will not get it as easy as we want or as expeditiously as we want, because the corrupt find a way of protecting themselves. They are able to engage the biggest lawyers, the most competent. And if you heard the Attorney General speaking on the issue of the former finance minister, he is engaged a former Attorney General of the U.S., a former minister also of Afghanistan who is in the U.S. So it means in some of these cases, it's difficult. Government would want to do it as quickly as they want, but the process would not be as quick as we want to see it. So oral is there. Then I would also want to talk about the rule of law. There have been mixed signals. One of the mixed signals would have to do with the way the Chief Justice was pushed out. And that is one we need to pay attention to. I'm not saying people should not be let go if they do the wrong things, but when there is the perception that this person is pushed out because they have leanings towards this and that, then it becomes difficult. But I must also say that the posturing of the opposition on the issue didn't also serve the interests of the issue at all. And maybe in the future and I think the Constitutional Review Committee has taken that into account and made some very good recommendations to ensure that if we get that, we will not do. Bernard, let me end by saying that this government has acted on the commitment to be inclusive. One of the things that happened recently is the participation in COPS 11. That's the Conference of State Parties when it comes to the United Nations Convention Against Corruption. Hitherto, it's just government, it's state parties. So they go, they come back. This time around, 2 civil society actors were included. I went to Qatar, this time as part of the government's delegation. That is not to say government paid for me. No, I paid. I paid and went on my own. Yes, the recognition that civil society is part of the process is a beautiful thing. And I hope that whoever takes over from this government would continue, or this process would continue on an annual basis. That's good. Because we brought on board our capacity. We were advocating for a resolution on party financing. And for that matter, Transparency International wanted to be part of the processes of the discourse. And usually it's only government that is allowed in those informal discussions. But when we're added to the government delegations, we're also able to have access to the whole infrastructure. And that is good. And through our inputs, we got the resolution passed. And I believe that going forward, this is also a very good signal that government wants to fight corruption. Because if we have co-sponsored, including Norway and others, to get that resolution on party financing passed, then it means at the local level or here in Ghana, we must make sure that all the issues of, we've been talking about the challenges, including the parties are those who are supposed to be rendering accounts to the Electoral Commission and not the candidates. The resolution talks about parties, the candidates, and everybody.
Right.
So I believe, let me end here, and then when there are more questions, we'll talk about them.
Wonderful. This is the Roundtable discussion, John Mahama 2.0, thematic assessment of the first year of the final term of John Dramani Mahama. We just listened to Mary Ada, Transparency International, on good governance. She mentions accountability, transparency, inclusiveness, a few things that have happened. The good governance tracker from the Ghana Statistical Service. The NACAP has become NICAP and is looking great. Constitutional review has started. We must follow through. Oral seems to have sent the right signals. Rule of law sent mixed signals. All in all, a positive outlook. Let's put hands together for the panel one more time. Now, before we turn our attention to our audience, we have students. Students, are you there? I hope you have some questions and some comments. We have students from Unimac, GIJ, and also the Academic City. I think there's one critical question for every panelist, and this, I don't want a long presentation. You've all laid a foundation as to what the Mahama government has done in the first year. I think the logical question is, what should the focus be for the second term or the second year, right? He's laid a foundation. He started certain things. What should he prioritize from now? All right? I think that question can be asked without a 10-minute presentation. Okay. So, I don't know what I'm coming back to. I'm not going to go the same order. So, who's ready to go? Based on everything you've heard so far, in your thematic area, what 2 or 3 things do you think the president or the government should prioritize or emphasize? Because I think a number of you mentioned the structural issues. I think David was clear when he said he has done some things by plugging the hole, but there is a structural challenge he has to address. So you go first.
Yeah,
yes.
I think for education, 3 things. The first thing is that in 2025, the government did not recruit new teachers.
Mm-hmm.
And the impact is that there are about 30,000 empty classrooms without teachers, impacting negatively on out-of-school children. In-school children are dropping out in many schools, as evidenced in our out-of-school census report in the northern region. So
30,000 students.
There are about 30,000 classrooms without teachers.
We have 30,000 classrooms without teachers.
Yes.
In Ghana.
Yes.
Basic or secondary?
Basic.
30,000.
Not schools, classrooms.
Okay. Yes. Still 30,000 classrooms without teachers.
Yes.
Are you serious?
Yes. It's even more. It's even more. Yes, and so, you know, every year we need about 15,000 teachers to maintain equilibrium. Equilibrium meaning that to cover for inefficiency in teacher distribution and also atone for annual attrition.
And we have 30,000 classrooms.
One in 2025. So that's 15K.
So when they add the one they need for
before
this year,
that there was a deficit. Exactly.
So at least 30,000 teachers must be recruited.
At least.
Wow.
That's for basic school, not teachers for pre-tertiary, just basic. So the government must focus on deploying teachers to the areas they are needed. That is the first thing. Not just posting teachers, but posting them to the schools where they are needed. That's the first thing.
Okay.
The second thing the government must do, that the government promised that it's going to implement a policy where teachers that are set posting to deprived areas will be given an allowance. I think it's a 20% allowance, deprived area allowance. We are in year 2. Such incentives must go with deploying teachers to those areas. Other than that, you will deploy 30K, but they won't go to Tatale Sangoli. They won't go to Afram Place. And so that 20% deprived area allowance is critical for implementation in 2026.
Wow.
The final one I want to talk about is supervision of teachers. We are talking about WASI, we are talking about BBC, everything. It starts and ends with the efficiency with which teachers deliver, given the resources available. We want to see government focus more on ensuring that we improve the quality of teacher supervision, teaching, delivery, and learning in our secondary schools especially, and then in our basic schools. So these are 3 areas that I want to see government invest. Not all of these are big budget areas.
3 areas of
But
improvement
it's very, very
for
important.
education.
So that we can improve quality of learning outcomes.
Who wants to go next? Thank you. Let's put hands together for him. I think that was fantastic. And it was in just 2 minutes. So let's follow the queue. David, you want to go next?
Yes, I'll keep it as short as I can. The first one is actually get the people involved in the development and design of infrastructure.
Okay.
And we tend to underrate the people's energy. I think, and I'll come from an economic point of view and narrow down to infrastructure. I think one of the best things that happened in year 1 was the National Economic Dialogue.
Wonderful.
If you notice, in the previous regimes, they have attempted either some, including NDC 1 and Mahama 1 rather. They have either attended some national economic dialogue or some form of bringing people on board when the economy is in challenges. But this time, for the first time, it was done at the beginning.
From the beginning.
So far as I'm concerned, this should be done yearly.
Correct.
It doesn't have to be the same size, but it can be such that you get battery of people from different sectors who then contribute. And there should be a tracking system to know how their contribution was taken on board or not. It doesn't mean every suggestion should be taken on board, but at least they must be seen to be contributing in that way. That way it liberates energies, and I will come to liberating energy. So based on that, the suggestions going forward, I think for me, number 1 in infrastructure is actually the energy sector. Contrary to what many people think, its multiplier effect is very, very important. And it is for our long-term growth. And for a president who wants to leave legacy, getting the energy sector to develop a base load. A base load means that stability that will enable us not only bring the price down, but to industrialize. And again, there's no time to go into how it can be done. But this is doable, I mean. Now, still on that energy sector, I think it's important that we push the price to industry down. I think I've said that already, and I don't want to. But there's a third point in the energy sector which is quite important, and it tends to be overlooked. Look, with the advent of AI, which everybody is talking about, energy is actually the game changer, not AI. Just look around. Countries which attract databases, crypto, everything, are those who have got excess energy. And in Africa, the only country can talk about now is Ethiopia. Just because of the Renaissance Dam and the 6,000 megawatts of power that they release into the system. Quite a lot of data centers are being attracted there, which is beginning to now create a lot of special economic zones, industrial parks, etc. That's the way you industrialize and create jobs. So we should look at it that way. Second, we should try and bring the cost of doing infrastructure down, particularly the road sector. One of the things which take us to the IMF all the time that we tend to overlook, we focus on the so-called debt to GDP ratio, but what causes it? When you actually decide to deliver infrastructure, especially roads, and your structure of your contracting is such that it does not manage to fix or limit the cost escalation, no infrastructure gets done, almost no infrastructure gets done at the same price you estimated. So you make commitment, IMF and the rest are following, and they will say, oh, now the cost, including the contingent cost, is now added, and suddenly your debt to GDP ratio has shot up. There are several ways to bring the cost down, including the way we actually acquire the corridors for road. You see project affected persons, resettlement action plans, etc., which delay and increase cost. There's a lot that can be done there. I also think that a lot of infrastructure which has commercial character can actually be, quote and unquote, done with private sector funding without that huge recourse to government. And again, there are a lot of things that government can do in that sector. Water is another sector that we need to look at. There are ways of delivering water that is actually financed by the private sector. You'll be surprised to hear this. There is a project, and again, those in the water sector may know this, 360,000 meter cube of water over 72 kilometer pipeline that can come to Accra every day. For water that goes into the sea every day. Go to Suchari and Aveyime, we pour water into the sea, and then we create a desalination plant, bring it from the sea, and do desalination without even a pipeline to distribute it. I am telling you this, and you can take anybody in government who wants to, I can show him, not a single dollar is required from government for a private sector to bring that water. And again...
So it doesn't have to enter the sea yet?
It's already entering the sea every day.
Okay. So no, I'm saying there's already desalination, so you're saying they can do one before it enters the sea?
Yes.
Which
What
is
I'm
fresh
saying
water.
is that what I'm saying, we have implemented water we bring from the sea.
Yes.
What about the one that is going into the sea for free?
Yeah.
And that water also have an export component for which there is funding available that enable us sell that water to neighboring countries at a price above the PURC price
So
to
we can
be
make
subsidized.
Wonderful.
Again, these are the way you think and you create structural changes in the economy. Let me end with one because of time. Education. I think we can supply education infrastructure by liberating energies. There are several ways we can do this. For example, there are a lot of companies who will do CSIR by deciding to build schools to eliminate part of the schools under trees. They need to know where they are. Government need to benchmark the cost. And these schools then are identified with contractors who do the building at a fixed price. And it becomes tax deductible. It's not difficult to do that.
Beautiful.
You can even have people who pull it, whose name appear on the plaque, that I contributed this amount of money to building the schools. There is a formula to do this. It's very easy.
Education is happy.
I think Get Fund has started something similar.
Okay.
Where they have a fundraising unit now, so they're no more relying on government fully. And what that unit is doing is that they are tapping into CSR support, raising funding from corporates. And they have an arrangement.
It should be done with a national campaign.
Yeah, I'm coming there. And they have an arrangement with GRA. So if a company contributes 1 million, they get the tax rebate equivalent at the end of the year. So that's something
we don't know.
encourage.
The thing that we don't know.
But
Only you and Get Fund know, because nobody here knows about
because
it.
we have been working with them
That's the
on
problem.
innovative finance.
The people in the mining sector and all the companies that have money to spend, if they knew this, then it can be implemented.
Law practice.
We don't
if
know.
I want to contribute
So
10,000,
they must scale it up. You know,
I think it's a fantastic suggestion.
idea.
So that they benchmark the price, they let us know the location, so you
Yeah.
can pick 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah.
The contractor is clear, so there's no corruption there.
Yeah.
And when we spend 200,000, it will benefit our tax.
And Ben, just one small point. The award of contract to contractors above a certain point should be tied to how much they have built these schools within a certain price. That way, you will eliminate schools under trees in 2 years. It's not magic. We are not liberating energies of people.
We are trying to over-centralize our solutions, and we don't have the capacity to do it.
Because it's also for those who like to centralize things, they are the ones who sign the check, and that's how they get part of their money.
Procurement economy.
Yes, at times the desire to centralize it is also conscious.
Wonderful. I'm still taking top 2 or 3 suggestions for the government going forward. Let me do environment, I'll do economy, agric, and I'll end with governance. Then I'll come to you guys. So environment, what are your top 2 or 3 suggestions for the government going forward?
So I think, Bernard, before I even wrapped up, I made some recommendation.
Okay.
So I'll just go straight to the point that I forgot to include. For me, if you look at the issue of Galamsey, we can clearly see that it's poverty-driven, right? So if you're asking people to stop, then what are the alternatives that you're going to give them? So it will be very good that the government can sort of introduce some sustainable alternative livelihoods. And this obviously has to be done in consultation with the people. You need to find out what will work for them, what is economically viable. And then also just to come back to the point of, agriculture. Once you are introducing them, you need to create a market. Because you also don't want a situation that, they will go into whatever activities and then there's no market for it. So it's also very key that we look at things in that direction. And then most importantly, I think I highlighted on the issue of civic and then environmental education. Clearly, the fight is not only for government. You need the buy-in of people. So it's very important that, they go very big on education, different kinds of, dissemination, approaches and then strategies, all in the effort of trying to shift the behavior of people. And I think once they're able to do that, we should be able to, head somewhere with that.
Good.
And then lastly, I think I mentioned the issue of trying to institutionalize it. You need to try and then empower the institution, give them the autonomy. Because clearly, there's word out there that most of these fights are being led by partisan people. And then, when it comes to the mandate of the institution, they are sort of, handicapped or restricted. They arrest people and then they are getting calls from all over trying to get them to release them. So I think once we are able to sort of institutionalize it, then you give them the power to, face the fight fully and then squarely. So,
Wonderful. Let me go to agric and come to economy. Professor Canton, top 2 or 3 suggestions for the government.
I will make it about 4 or 4 because actually some are saying that you don't need that much money to navigate them, so they can box them and move. The first and most important is research. Research and seeds. Actually, the government didn't mention research in the whole of their Feed Ghana project, and they just assumed that these things will work. Productivity will be enhanced. You will say you will have more of this and that. How will you get that? It can only be gotten through research. Unfortunately, research have not been highlighted. And now add to that, that is, we're talking about seed systems, which is purely the brainchild of research. Without research, you can never get any material that you can stand on. As I talk in this Africa, in fact, if you are talking of best brains in agriculture, we have them here. I'm not boasting at all. You go to FAO, you go to the International Research Institute, a lot of them are vested with Ghanaians. And we are here also. In fact, like I told you the other time, the best all-round year maize that started over 6 decades and still is the best. It's called Obatampa, which every country uses it as source material, developed by Ghanaian scientists. My seniors, some are late now, you know, who did that excellent work. Every seed program in this world, including America, wherever you go. But now we have strangled with funding. In fact, researchers are paid basically only salaries. But money to do research, and you all know, we say research is expensive. Yes, if research is expensive, go and cause ignorance. Without that, we can't get anywhere. Every year, we are importing 400 million worth of fruit tomatoes, and it's increasing year in, year out. You're talking of onion, 100 million, carrots and all those things, aubergines, virtually every vegetable. And we do not have a dedicated research institute that will meet these demands. So the Ghana Institute of Horticulture is there, and they can support in this. I've said it here over and over that we need a horticulture research institute, just like my institute, Savannah Agric, Cross Research. These are specific targeted institutes, and they are producing world-class, top-notch crop varieties and hybrids that can out-yield or are comparable with any international crop variety or hybrid. So that is number one, research, and then the seed system. The second has to do with the irrigation facilities. Since Ghana started, right, even from Nkrumah coming today, it was only a champion that built irrigation dams and schemes. No other party, no other government have done that. Some of them are in dire need for rehabilitation. They have just abandoned them. Nothing is working. And you all saw, they said, I mean, there was one village, one down. When even what is there, you can't maintain. Why do you? It's like marrying, you have 2 wives. You can't even take care of one. And you still want to add another 2 to add to that to cause yourself a more mess. You can't navigate a mess. Why invite more mess on you? If those are fixed, we are done. We are also told about the solar irrigation. And the facilities exist. Like he said, and he continued also. Look at the white water. Look at the black water. Look at the red water. The water you're talking of, it's lying there. To just lift it, okay? I've worked in this since 31 years. It's just lifting right from the Kamba Dam. You go to Tamde, the Barre, it's just common sense. It's not even, it's not science, not to talk about rocket science. It's not science, it's commonsensical. Just put a pump there and lift it. The machines they are seizing, your people are seizing Naimo. Dash them to earth so that you dash them to the districts. We just lift the water, and you will have seeds produced in the dry season.
So irrigation focus
is number 2.
Number 2.
And then also the farm mechanization centers and the farmer service centers.
Is that number 2 or number 3? That's
number 3.
Farm
the farmer service centers and then the farmer mechanization. Actually, they kept them separately, but you can box them together because farmer service centers, actually mechanization has a huge component in it. But the government kept the mechanization centers 50 of them, they are just going to be state of the art, right from planting up to harvesting and even processing. Fantastic. In fact, for these two, the Minister for Agri, Honorable Eric Opoku, actually, if I will go with you to his office. We just need the farmer service center, because once it's there, it's one-stop shop.
Wonderful.
Everything is there. See, nobody will make noise again. So if these three that I've mentioned, in fact, already they are in the manifesto.
So,
they are not
research
new.
and seed systems,
Yes.
irrigation facilities, which is common sense,
Yes.
farmer mechanization, and
Yes.
farmer service centers.
And then the last is the Tumu Cotton Ginnery.
Cotton Ginnery.
Yes, it's number. In fact, it's if they don't, I won't come here for your discussion. Oh yes, because we have been following. I'm serious, Bernard. If not, I'll bring cotton farmers from Sosala area. We will come and pick it at City here. But you are supposed to carry that for
Tumu Cotton Ginnery.
Yes, Tumu
What's
Cotton
happening
Ginnery.
to it?
No, it has been grounded.
So they should revamp it.
It should be revamped.
The
And we
Tumu
have
Cotton
several other generations. You have one at Pusunamogo in the Upper East. You have one in Tamale, and you even have one in Wa. And if we are able to work on the cotton generate, it's a replica effect. In Benin, they call it the white gold. Benin have no oil. Benin have no any agric facility. It's only cotton. And today, Benin is the most developed West African country.
Let me
because
understand.
of the
Do we
white
grow
gold.
cotton in the country?
We used to grow the cotton in Tumu area there. Huge. In fact, we have the best cotton by then. Burkina was copying from us. When I was in the 70s, I was in primary school. The cotton from the Sisala area was premium cotton.
So they should revamp the cotton industry
cotton generation.
and build a cotton ginnery.
Exactly.
They should revamp it.
Exactly.
Interesting.
And
I didn't know about this.
You have your companies, Japan Textiles, Akosum, they are all perishing there. Then you are bringing cheap Chinese fabric here, killing local industry. Does that make sense?
No, please.
You see, we should maintain the materials and resources here. I'm a Russian trained. I lived in Russia, Ukraine. Look, they will never go for anything outside. Something they have the comparative and competitive advantage in. They believe in their own. We are saying grow Ghana, eat Ghana. Yet you are importing poultry. Some people call them mortuary into this country. Who needs that? No, that a lot of it, I don't eat them. It doesn't. That's why people are dying prematurely. But nobody researches into them. I'm not speculating. You are going to pick somebody have killed a chicken and dump it somewhere. You don't even know how it was produced in the first place. How was it preserved? Maybe they used formalin to preserve it, just like they were doing to bush meat here. You use formalin is used in preserving dead bodies. If they use it to preserve poultry or any meat product and bring here, it's pollution. So you have to determine what you eat. I don't service maca anyhow. I don't think you do that as well. You go to a very good mechanic. Some go to Japan Motors like Merawudana and others. But when you are a big or Asare, Mr. Asare and they do. I'm a senior citizen now. But what you eat, you don't service it. You go and you are eating carelessly. She said the food you are eating is full of cyanide, lead, molybdenum, very sensitive elements. You perish. But Ghanaians don't check about that. But when your car, you say, oh, I want a Shell station, Shell oil, this and that. What of yourself? So agric is something we really need to relook at.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Let's put our together for Professor. Professor Babwati, you set us off. So what are your top recommendations? I think you hinted some in your presentation, but what should the government focus on in this second year?
Yes, so economics is broad, like governance. So the first thing is to consolidate the gains, the macro stability that we have. And we should bear in mind that some of the difficulty that we have, the challenges that we had, teething problems must be looked at. I think one of them is the domestic gold purchase, which has dominated the discussions. Anytime you start a new model, you will have some challenges. And I think it's something that needs to be looked at. Where should the costs be shared, and so on, is something that can be done. So we have to consolidate the gain and make sure that the stability continues. I wouldn't worry if we are moving into the upper single-digit inflation. And if you look at the long-term inflation, let's say from 2000, and you add all variables, you will see that the optimum inflation will be around 7 to 9, maximum 10. So if we are around that point and it still stays there, it helps businesses to plan. And then I will urge Bank of Ghana to try and manage the exchange rate fluctuation within the 5% band, so that at least it will also not bring about a lot more fluctuation. That's the first one. The second one is that having had the stability, we need to move into investment in infrastructure, because that will open the economy. Infrastructure has said a lot, Agric has said a lot, and infrastructure development must be targeted. It must also be financed through public-private partnership. I have a challenge when government has to do almost everything when it comes to infrastructure. Elsewhere, you don't build roads and nobody tow it. And I'm happy to hear the express route from Accra to Kumasi that will be towed. It means that you'll be able to get the returns, and government, the burden will not always be on government. And government should be very cautious not to rush to the capital market. I think I've had discussions on that. It is not bad to borrow, but you must borrow strategically. I will be happy if government will go to capital market and borrow, not to support the budget, but to target certain infrastructure, like we did for the gas pipeline.
Which can pay for itself.
Which can pay for itself, pay for an airport, which will pay for itself. If we
that's the PPP mandate.
Yes. If we have to go for roads, that will be something that I have a problem that roads are not being towed. And when it is destroyed, government have to find money to do that.
Interesting. He also mentioned about the debt being from high cost of infrastructure. So both of you are saying that the financing of the project ab initio shouldn't raise our debt.
No.
You find a sustainable means of financing it so it doesn't raise our debt.
Yes.
And let it pay for itself.
Exactly. And when you do that, you will not have that debt overhang as we've had. The fourth one is that if you open up the economy, then we move into the real sector, industrialization and modernization of agriculture. These are the productive sectors that can lead to job creation. Government should avoid the old stuff that creating jobs is to create a model where government will come in and say, I'm going to employ. That is not sustainable. It is the private sector that creates jobs. Government have to facilitate. Government have to support the private sector. And if government support the private sector and private sector is able to produce and export, that is where your stability will be sustained and will be long-term. Remember, one thing that has sustained us as far as the exchange rate is concerned has been the reserves. The reserves. And the reserves have come from gold. Gold is finite. So you can do that over a period, but it cannot be the long term. I think the stability should open up the economy, get the productive sectors there, get the private sector to move the economy. Now move into the export. Your 24-hour economy should focus more on export to generate the revenue, and that is more organic. When export is coming from productive sectors, that is more organic than when it is coming from finite area. That one is supposed to be short to medium and support the productive sectors. I will end by saying job creation is crucial. The government should come in and make sure that the jobs that are being created will not only support the adults, but to also get the youth on board. That is where the intervention.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Professor Babatin. So the last person on this panel for suggestions will be Mary Ada. Then we'll take a short break. When we come back, Umaru Sanda and the students will be speaking around what they themselves also expect, and if they have any questions for the panel, we'll take it as well. So,
excuse me, can I make a point?
Yes,
you
please.
see, you're talking about this business called Change for Our Economy. I want a clarification here. Is this supposed to be a supervisory monitoring role it should play, or is also trying to go working like we do in Agric and other areas. What is your take on that?
I'm not part of that, but my understanding is that it will be a facilitating kind of unit that will facilitate the production and export and everything that must be done in the economy. They are not coming in to do it
themselves. Yeah.
But when you look at the write-up in the manifesto, that is how it is. But it appears now, like it also wants to work like physically. It should have branches in the region. And this
no, that's not what it is.
No, there's a secretariat that is facilitating.
They more coordinate. So they're basically encouraging
I
people
am
to
just
enter
cautioning.
And private sector will come in.
Because that is the mess that we had with SADA, which metamorphosed into NADA, Northern Development, nothing to show off. Very bereft. It's not working. It's totally not. It's undesirable. We don't need them. You see, because you fix something that have not given anything, you are laughing, and they tell you that to help Northerner. Which Northerner have you helped? Tell me, which Northerner have they helped? No, which Northerner since the two started? Tell me. I have lived in the North all my life. Whom have they helped there?
Well, so they should repeat the mistake of SADA and
yes.
Northern Development
So
Authority.
they should learn from it. And like you are saying, if it's supervisor, have no qualms. Because the institutions or ministries that have structures and can do these kind of things, number one is the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, which also they have kept under local government. I have never agreed with that under some reasons I don't agree with, because they are in every community in this country. After Agri, the second you will get is education, because the schools are in where communities are big, they cite them there. Then the third is Ghana Ghana Ministry of Health. All the other ministries, for example, Ministry of Industry,
they don't have the penetration of these things.
Tell me, where do they exist? Even you go to region, you have 3-4 people. How are you going to carry out a policy? How will you implement it? So that's what I'm cautioning.
Thank you for the caution. Wonderful. Let me take Mary, good governance, your top 2 or 3 suggestions for the government before we come to our audience.
All right, so for me, to pick on from where Prof. Canton left off, the issue of policy inconsistencies, and then sometimes even not just the inconsistencies, but the ad hoc nature of the policies that are grounded in political talk and speeches which are made, transcend into some of these confusion when it comes to policy making and also reflecting them in policy implementation. What we need to do in the governance space is to ensure that we are designating funding, special funds, like Kofi was talking about Get Fund for education, and even there are still gaps. If we want to promote good governance in Ghana, then we must reflect that in action. And the action would be to provide the right resources to ensure that every plan we put in place is actualized. And so for me, there should be some kind of reflection on that to then ground it in policy and also put it into what we are going to be working on, the National Ethics and Anti-Corruption Plan, which encompasses everything around governance. I say so based on the fact that we say about $3 billion is lost annually in Ghana through corruption. Can you imagine if you designate just a percentage of the GDP to the governance sector, specifically to fighting corruption, and then you give these institutions some serious key performance indicators to work around? You can imagine that $3 billion will go into recruiting all the 30,000 teachers for the education sector and build some schools actually for us. So that should be what government should be thinking about now if they want to fight corruption. I also say so because it's like over the years you see most of the institutions giving budgets, and at the end of the day, even those budgets, I hear this year the budget is about 65 or thereabouts expended, meaning we give money, allocate monies, but these are not given to the institutions to work. So we need to reflect that in the allocation. Again, I believe that it is myself and you, our role to ensure that we promote civic accountability. If we do not, governments will come, governments will go. And I say let's promote that and actively engage. Because if we do not follow through, governments will do what they want to do, which they see as policy. Whether they are incoherent or coherent doesn't matter. So far as they have people supporting them to do so, they would follow through and do what they want. At the end of the day, it is we, the people, who suffer. And remember, the Constitution tells us that the land belongs to us. We only give our mandate to those in authority to rule over us. So let's pay attention. Let's interrogate policy. Let's also ask the needed questions and make our politicians who we have put out there know that we cannot be taken for granted.
Wonderful.
It is very important. And then the role of civic education in all of this, from economy to environment to whichever, it's very important. We need to find a way of ensuring that the NCCE and other actors who do civic education are engaged, doing all the work to ensure that we build the capacity of citizens, be they the youth, be they women, excluded, included, whoever, to ensure that we are following through. First, if it comes to anti-corruption, when we see it, let's say something. Don't leave it at saying something, report it. After you have reported it, follow through to ensure that it is investigated. And do not give up when it is slow. Because as we are told, the wheels of justice grind slowly. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. We are still here at the Roundtable discussion here at Channel One Television, live on CTFM as well. When we come back, Umaru Sandamadu will help us with some comments, and also our live panel or our live audience from the two universities. I'm sure they have a few things to say or contribute or ask. We'll go to them before we take closing comments from our in-house panel. Stay with us.